My name is Cloe Ashton. I'm a freelance illustrator and graphic designer and advocate of open source software. I'm actually very much into the idea of free culture, and I don't like proprietary software. So for me, it's almost a moral obligation to use things that, you know, aren't out to get you. When I have my computer and when I use the resources that I use on it, I want to know that they're my resources to use and not someone else's that they can take away at any point. Art schools, you know, if you're going to learn something, you want to learn the cutting edge and you want to use the best tools that you have at your disposal. And unfortunately, at this point, proprietary software does have, you know, kind of the best resources and the best tools that are available for certain things. There are exceptions and more are growing every day. Blender is a great example of one that actually, open source software that heavily competes with and I think outdoes its proprietary kind of brethren in a big way. GIMP is not quite there yet. Inkscape is not quite there yet, but I think that we will see a shift in schools once there are more options that people are aware of. You know, if people come into school with rudimentary knowledge of software they've been using for free when they were younger, there will be more of an impetus for them to teach the skills and not just the application. I think that there's kind of a misapprehension about open source software and that a lot of people who think that it's harder to use. It's not really. I think the main thing is people who have been trained to use one program have a difficult time switching to something else that's unfamiliar. Personally, I never used Photoshop, so for me, everything was incredibly intuitive. I came to it very fresh, and now it's second nature. And I think that, you know, once things settle in, it's just like with anything, there's a learning curve. The first step into breaking away from the shackles of proprietary software is probably just do your research, find out what exactly you need it for. That's another thing. A lot of people think, you know, that the free tools at their disposal aren't the best because they're not paying for them and they can't do the things that they want, but something like only 3% of people who use Photoshop have to use Photoshop. Only 3% of people are doing something that cannot be done using open source. So I think, you know, evaluate what your needs are and then find out what's available, and 9 times out of 10, or well, 7 times out of 10, you're going to find what you need. In a perfect world, I think everyone would be using and contributing to open source. I don't think that'll ever happen because there will always be people who have the money and are willing to pay for something that is either easier or, you know, just brand identity. That's always going to be there for them. And people are always going to want to be proprietary themselves, to not put things in the Creative Commons and not to give to free culture. And so, you know, they're free to do that. I think that may always happen. I definitely think more people will be using open source software in the coming years, especially as it becomes more stable and there are more people on board with it and there's more feedback from the artist community, which is growing. The most important part of what I do and the tools that I use is probably the fact that I have complete control over it. Everything that I do, I can use it however I want. There's no limitations on it. I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to pay extra money if I want to learn something. If tutorials are there. There's probably, I said in my talk, almost everything I learned was from 13-year-olds on YouTube. And it's true. There's just people can share freely, and I think that's the most exciting thing, is everything becomes about community and less about me, me, me.